Hello and welcome to The Quest on Rajya Sabha TV. I'm Rakhee Bakshee. This show gives you a deep insight into the life, career and vision of a leading personality. And on this show, we have been bringing you new faces each time. And this time, the new face, the new leading personality is a Lok Sabha MP, Mr. Jayant Chaudhary. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Let's begin from your childhood and the inspiration. We know you come from a rich legacy and the generation that you represent now after many. What would you really look at the inspirational element in your life?
Well, I'm still young, so but really going back, growing up, I had great memories. Typically, people who have say a urban sort of typical urban upbringing, they are perhaps not exposed to a variety of issues and people from different parts of India, which some may say is the real India. But growing up, I had exposure, I went to villages, I interacted, and somewhere...
And happened because of your grandfather, Chaudhary Charan Singh? How
Yes.
do you look at this whole relation as a child and him?
Well, looking back, I was very young when he passed away. I remember that day when he was being cremated, the procession, I remember the rain. I remember small interactions with him where he would ask me, he taught me the Gayatri Mantra, for instance. Yeah, he would point out a photo of Mahatma Gandhi and ask me, "Kaun hai?" He was very close with the family. So, and in those days, typically you had larger family gatherings. So every evening the family would come together. They would play tuk-tuk, talk about politics.
Okay.
Typical Indian household.
So do you think what you became finally has a lot to do with your childhood background and atmosphere that you lived in? So many people who would come to your grandfather and then to your father subsequently, Mr. Ajit Singh.
I think, yeah, somewhere the germs, I mean, the beginning of the process is perhaps can be looked at as in those days. The back of my mind, I must have motivated me at some level. And to be fair,
But did you think you'll become a politician?
yeah,
Were you sure?
See, to be fair, it's not as if my parents put pressure on me. My father said, "This is what I want you to do." He never sat me down and put any pressure on me at all. In fact, perhaps motivation came from within.
Okay.
I was working in the private sector. I quit that job and then I told my father, this is what I want.
But wasn't this actually easier for you than many other who maybe struggle much more than you could have?
Of course, there's huge barriers to entry. Politics is not easy. It's not for everyone. It's not very democratic in that sense. So, and even the perception is such. It may not be as difficult as some educated young people think it is.
So how would you take that accusation that people maybe would hurl at saying that, oh, it's all dynastic, it's easy?
See, it's fair, but in our Indian system and not just in the Indian society, worldwide if you look at it, people give some sort of value to, say, a generational value system. So people ascribe that because I am of a certain lineage or I represent a certain name or a identity or a history in Indian politics, that I will do my best to keep those traditions going forward. So they ascribe a certain value system to me.
And individually, does that become a burden or kind of severe responsibility on you?
It depends on how you look at it. It can be uplifting, it can be motivating, and like you said, it can be a huge platform. But at the same time, people will always measure you, and I know that Chaudhary Charan Singh, the things he did, that he accomplished, his motivation, the support he had, perhaps in Indian politics, those times have gone. But that's the expectation people have, that you will work like him, you will again create.
And then on to your father, Mr. Ajit Singh. Again, how did you look up to him and then, of course, followed politics as a career?
See, my father was, perhaps when he came into politics, didn't fit the mold of the typical Indian politician.
Because of the whole huge technical background also, he himself.
I mean, he spent a long time away from the country, he came back in. He had an Indian ethos. Growing up, we were completely Indian in every aspect. But being away from the political setup and coming back in must have been hard on him. I remember his padyatras, famous padyatras he went to Lucknow, him coming back after a month. पैरों में छाले लगे हुए थे. I mean, he really struggled. He's put in a lot of hard work. And looking back today, I think you'll have to speak to him. Is he satisfied?
But did you suffer that dilemma, maybe, which was you got caught into this whole modern world and the world that you had to face you're working with farmers, you're working in a rural background, which is a constituency in Uttar Pradesh. So did you have this dilemma, or how did you handle this balance?
See, the thing is, it's generational changes are always there. Indian society is not static; it's very dynamic. People in the villages are not, buffoons or idiots. They are very aware. So you don't really necessarily have to put up a face for them. There's a certain dichotomy in Indian life, in the sense that people who have a certain stature, or who are powerful, or who have money.
If you're suggesting that there's a lot of honesty that you have to reflect,
No.
don't you think it's something that you're talking about which is heard rare?
No, I'm saying that in typical Indian life, there are grey areas that we've assigned a lot of India's problems to those grey areas. We don't want to think about it. We don't want to look at it. So we are doing our job. So people in today's city, young man who's working in Microsoft, who perhaps has never seen a village in his life, will perhaps not connect so well with them. But because I grew up in that system, I knew them, I understand where they're coming from. Perhaps it was not. I relate to that, and essentially that is my motivation. Otherwise, I'm not in politics for any other cause.
I was trying to read as much, and one statement coming from you was whether in 5 years you could be able to inaugurate a road. Somewhere showed your frustration. कि क्या 5 साल में भी मैं कर पाऊंगा? I mean, we're talking about again India, which is beset with challenges of this kind. How would you look at, especially in your constituency or Uttar Pradesh, and a lot of these serious issues, of course, we'll be talking about later. How do you look at these infrastructural challenges that we face in rural part of India?
Well, there are huge structural issues with our economic systems, our polity, that need real change. And the thing is, it's also how aware is our voting public on the responsibilities and duties, and an area where an MP can actually have a role. People think that even today, पुराने ज़माने में जैसे DM था, वो राजा माना जाता था अंग्रेज़ों के शासन में. The DM is king. Whatever he wants, he'll get done. So typically, when an MP goes to his area, people ascribe the same sort of power to you, that you are the MP. If you want something, it'll be done.
How are you trying to make any
federal
change?
Structure, you have a state-center relation issue. We're in the opposition in the state. I've seen a lot of times when we've tried to do something, get something implemented, and on the ground it doesn't happen because people, they're always doing politics.
But
and
what is your personal effort to bring about a change or do something?
If I can represent positivity, for instance, a lot of people perhaps don't work that way, but in my MP lad, I've worked at it in a system where some percentage of work I actually give to people who've just come and approached me. So people who come and invite me, I'm not asking them which area are you from, your village, how many votes did I get. So those micro level calculations, those political calculations that people do, I've tried to keep away from that, because essentially when you're representing a district, actually you're not just representing a district. As an MP, you're talking of national causes. So you have to grow beyond a certain level. So I've tried to keep a sort of more mature discourse, more mature way of looking and working, and I've tried to get more people, wider audience involved in politics. And typically, if you want to change up the system, you need new people.
Okay, that's a good line to take this break on. You're watching right now The Quest, and we are talking to Mr. Jayant Chaudhary. We'll be coming back shortly, but don't go away. Watch this very interesting conversation. You're watching The Quest right now, and we are in conversation with Mr. Jayant Chaudhary, Lok Sabha MP from Uttar Pradesh, and a state which is now being talked about for all the wrong reasons. We're talking about this very sad and tragic incident of Muzaffarnagar. How politically are you looking at it? We know that you're making a lot of visits to the place also.
The thing is, it's going to have wide social ramifications. If you look at the traditions of that area, there people were living with each other. Those villages have been settled for so many years. People have been living there for so many years, working together, and their main identity up till now was as a farmer or as a peasant. Today, now their identity is driven on religious lines. It becomes very dangerous for that region. People who have migrated away from the village today, if they are going to go and say that we don't want to go back to where we come from our own village, so it's going to be very difficult.
So politically, how you're taking it on?
See, politically, issues of how people are going to vote in the elections is something that we'll look at later on. Right now, we're just trying to rebuild the bridges, Essentially, there's a big trust deficit. People don't have faith that the administration will look at them with an even approach. They're afraid of being victimized also. That
How do you think that faith and justice could be restored?
it'll take time. And essentially, we will have to try and work together. If we're going to have an obstructionist approach, it won't help. For instance, I think the government should engage with people who are going to talk in a sane manner, in a calm manner, and are going to work towards building bridges. If you're going to stop people like us from going to those people at a time like this, then, because order cannot be restored just by a legal order or by, army on the streets. Order can only be restored if people have faith. And so that's a part of the political process. You have to engage with the politicians there. You have to involve them in that process. You have to involve people from communities who are faces, even religious leaders. You get them all on one platform. Let them all talk in one voice.
Do you think somewhere that this kind of an incident, which is very tragic, could have been avoided?
Completely, it would have been avoided. See, in UP, bureaucracy has been completely politicized. A lot of these small incidents, if we have an efficient system, if we have bureaucrats who are empowered and honest, they would have stopped it, nipped it in the bud. What happened was a small incident, a crime, and then after a couple of hours, the DM was changed. People then saw that, the DM is changed because he was working in a certain direction. So then people got even more agitated. They did panchayats, and this area has had a long tradition. People do panchayats. That's a way of getting together and saying this is what you want done. But the government should have been listening. It should have stopped people who were talking in an inflammatory manner. Videos were being circulated. Those people should have been acted against, but they were allowed to roam free. And
you talked about this
complete administrative failure.
Okay, and you talked about this bureaucratic, understanding or lack of understanding rather, and what happened in Durga Shakti's case also. Somewhere I read a statement coming from one of your party leaders that what is happening is a whole transfer industry going on where bureaucrats are either transferred very early or something or the other is happening wrong with them.
See, right now what is happening is the message has gone out to the complete bureaucracy that you have to toe the line. If a Samajwadi worker goes up to CM and says this DM is not listening to me, then it's quite likely that he will be transferred within a couple of hours. So then the whole focus goes away from actually looking at the guy's service record, looking at what the feedback from the people is. You don't look at those things. You just transfer him based on what a complaint of your worker is giving you. You have to understand in the political economy, these people are not honest. They have their own interests. You have to understand that. So as an administrator, as a leader of the state.
Is it that easy to actually work on it?
You're not a leader of the party. You're a CM of the state. You're not a chief minister for Samajwadi party. So when you have Mulayam Singh saying that DM SSP must listen to Samajwadi worker, you are essentially egging on this kind of nepotism. The politicization of the bureaucracy. You are putting undue pressure on them. And then examples like Durga Shakti have happened everywhere.
So, there is this feeling, and also since you also represent the youth community, that somebody who is young and Chief Minister, Mr. Akhilesh Yadav, should have been, there had been large expectations, and somewhere this incident has put him down.
See, it will be a mark on his career for sure. He has a tremendous opportunity. And in the way that he has somehow shunned contact. He was engaging in mass contact during the running up to the elections. Now he seems much more closed. And the political system is very confused because you have so many different power centers. And like I was saying earlier, the politicization of everything is looked at from a political mindset. When the civil aviation minister writes to them that we should set up more airports in UP, they say, no, we will not. Why don't you take land yourself? So they look at everything like that. So my question is, okay, I'm an MP. If a worker comes to me and says, sir, आप थाने में चलिए, ये गड़बड़ हो रही है या ये जो है इसको आपको छुड़वाना है, I know where to draw the line. I know what is right and wrong. I'm not supposed to just take a political position in everything and just say, okay, you do whatever you want and I'll be there to support you. So as CM, he needs to bring all the criminal and the bad elements within his party. He needs to rein them in. He needs to show control. He needs to really leave a stamp. And he has failed to do that. And development is going to be so badly affected. This riot incident. You have sugar mills, you have problems that the sugarcane farmers are facing there because of dues. All those issues gotten washed away. No one will put their money in an area where there is crime at this level. Where there are, there's been more than 100 incidents of communal issues, tensions that have come.
Very sad. Again, going back further on Durga Shakti, that now that she met CM and then again her suspension gets revoked.
Yeah, I don't know why after meeting the CM everything's hunky-dory. So if you had a policy, follow the policy. Why are you doing this sort of, again it smacks of this sort of relation-based politics where if I have a good relation with you, then no matter what you do, I'll back you. Whether you're a criminal, rapist, honest or not, doesn't matter.
Actually. And in the same context, this whole bill is being talked about, Communal Violence Bill. How would you look at this whole idea?
Well, it's been an idea that has been there around for a long time. And you have to see, are the current laws enough? Have we been able to actually bring justice to victims of communal violence that has happened throughout the nation in the past? And you have to work towards the legislation that will bring people together and sort of restore faith in the judicial system, in the judicial process. So you need a strong bill. My father actually put in a private member's bill after significant discussion and involving people from various communities, people from various walks of life. So I think that was a good starting point. And government also has come out with a draft. But
as a party, how are you looking at it now?
I think there is the need for a law. Let's look at it. I wouldn't say that any, because there are allegations that coming out of this debate that if the bill in its present form is passed, that perhaps one section will feel aggrieved. So I don't think that's the way to look at it.
So you mean to say that wide consensus is really
Consensus is important, but at the end of the day, it is the government's prerogative. And I think this is the right time to send a message. You have to send a message to people who take law in their own hands. You have to send a message to the people who today are cowering with fear that this will not happen again. So this is the right, appropriate time. Engage in discussion, involve leaders of the opposition, take their points of view and move forward.
Debate and discussion, very good points again to take another break on, and we are talking right now to Mr. Jayant Chaudhary. We'll continue this conversation with him, but don't go away, keep watching The Quest. We are coming back shortly. You're watching The Quest right now, and we are talking to Mr. Jayant Chaudhary, talking about some of these other important issues. You know, honor killing is another issue that we are really beset with, again, a huge issue. How would you look at, also because you're a young MP, you represent modern ideas, that this issue should be sorted out or solved?
There can be no honor when you take someone's life. You're not fighting for honor anymore. So it is one of those baser instincts that sometimes, I don't know, I cannot understand it. How people are so gripped with these sort of things that they get swept away in emotions and take law into their own hands like that. So we have to put a value to human life.
But do you think there are deeper social intricate problems that one is kind of finding tough to tackle?
Yeah, increasingly I'm finding...
Though there is no reason for it.
Increasingly in Indian society we've seen as, we keep saying it to the global world that India is very tolerant, we have old traditions but somehow we are becoming more and more closed as a society. We are not willing to look at new ideas, look at change, look at the way the youth is thinking, and they want society to move in a certain direction. We are sort of resisting that change. So I'm hopeful. I'm of a positive mindset. Interestingly, my grandfather had proposed to Jawaharlal Nehru that you should somehow encourage inter-caste marriages. So that will help people move away from these sort of identity-based systems, value systems in politics and in society. I think that was a good idea. So now when you look at caste panchayats or this caste-based hatred, you have to go to the root cause. Essentially, we are still not over our sort of cultural, the heritage, you can call it, or you can call it a baggage that we have been
very rightly
started with. We have to move forward. I'm in favor of strong, strict legal action against anyone who takes law in their own hands.
That's a very good point to move further on. Another thing that you're working on and you really strongly feel about is working for the farmers, especially right now you refer to the kind of compensation the cane farmers you're also always been talking about. How are you really taking this battle on, and you feel that the government should come forward?
It'll be a constant struggle. Indian economy is going to go through several changes. Their sort of contribution to GDP is coming down. Well, in terms of workforce, in terms of employment, in terms of the rural economy, agriculture will remain significant for many years to come. So we have to look at issues of whether we are giving the producer their due, in terms of his productivity. Are we able to increase yields in line with our expectations, needs of the market? We haven't been. So we need to look at science. We need to look at bringing those ideas to the market. A lot of research has gone in, but somehow it's not been in the market space.
Does it all filter through to the right people,
We have
your constituents?
we have ICAR, we have Agriculture Ministry, we have several departments. But at the end of the day, rate of adaptation by the farmers is quite low. So on the level of research, I think we need to step up our efforts. We need to spend more money, allocate more resources, work internationally with several institutions, involve them as well. We have to give the producer their due in terms of a remunerative pricing system. Today, government is still procuring in large numbers, so we still need that safety net going forward. And the prices that government procures needs to take into account cost increases. Increasingly, we're in a globalized system. A farmer cannot control their costs. Today, urea costs, the way they're going up and down. Not really down, actually.
So it's all kind of interrelated.
So today, you're increasingly getting connected to the global world, but still the farmer is
losing, as they call it.
Yeah, but the farmer is losing more and more control. And in terms of his pricing, he's not getting the sort of...
and that's where the challenge with you is on. But coming down to another thing that you as a party are raising is this whole talk of Harit Pradesh when Telangana was being talked about. We still have to look at the faith of Telangana as such, but you have a party's wing there actually. So how are you looking at this Telangana bit first and your aspiration to build Harit Pradesh that you're talking about?
See, you have to look at it case by case, but from a policy perspective, we are in support of small states. So smaller administrative units where administratively is feasible. I wouldn't say cut up one district into 2 states, So you have to look at it, the history of the states.
Don't you think became Pandora's box and everything became kind of...
No. I mean, again, that's a resistance to change.
We saw in Parliament, for example, the kind of, disruption that we saw.
If you look at it from the old days, you have today Haryana, how well they're doing. The new states recently we formed, Uttarakhand, Chhattisgarh, they're all doing much better. And it's not as if these identities are, forever and ever that we have to maintain. So I don't know why people are saying Andhra Pradesh should remain the same. Why? It's not as if there was an Andhra Pradesh some years ago. So, in a sense, these identities will keep on changing. Issue is we have to make the polity stronger in the sense that people have to become closer. They have to feel an affinity for the democratic processes. People in Telangana are feeling that whoever government is formed in Andhra Pradesh, whichever government, is not looking after us. So that was a dangerous feeling. You cannot ignore those feelings. Today, people in the West feel that our money, our resources are being used.
A lot of people in many areas can have their own reasons to...
See, as long as they're working under the Indian Constitution and
framework,
larger framework, we are part of the country, we're working for the country's upliftment. We're making democracy stronger. If you're in favor of creating smaller districts, if you're in favor of Panchayati Raj system because it's empowering at the root level, the voter, this is the same process of empowerment.
Okay, that's a good angle that we're getting on this show. But looking at this poll season now, how as a party are you looking ahead with many things happening? In the BJP, we have a new name being already announced, Mr. Modi's. And a lot of these political alignments or realignments would happen. So how as a party would you go ahead?
I'm sure political commentators are having a field day. But ask any person who's in the system whether he wants to go and fight elections again. He perhaps doesn't look at it with the same excitement. It's a time we'll go to the people with our issues. I'm confident they'll look at everything in a holistic and positive manner. Indian politics is set to change in a big way. This coming decade, a lot of the old leadership will perhaps have to let go.
You're giving me a very general answer. I want you to be specific. I want you to be specific as a party.
See, as a party, we should do decently well. Our performance at the central level, sugarcane farm agitation, land acquisition issue, where we framed that whole debate.
Exactly,
I put in a members' bill. Today, we have a new law.
Yeah.
So we've had small successes.
Feel about that? Because
I'm quite happy. I'm quite happy. But you have to see how that rolls out, how it gets implemented in the states. States have a role. Even food security bill, it's a positive piece of legislation, but how does that get implemented? You have to look at these things. But in terms of electoral politics, these are ideas that will be taken up. These are ideas that will appeal to the person in the village, the real voter of real India. and we'll have to motivate them, I suppose, to come out in their numbers.
And lastly, of course, as a parliamentarian, we have seen you actually intervening a lot, which sometimes I think young MPs, so to say, get accused of not doing so well, or being very active, or being, very expressive as far as being inside the House is concerned, which I think you have intervened quite well. How would you look at your role as a parliamentarian now, and how do you want to go ahead?
I remember my first day. I was sitting there looking at people who were question hours, they were raising their hands, getting their chance to speak. It was very complex. So I remember the first day, I was like, I'm out of my depth. How do I do this? But slowly I've learned the ropes. It's been a tremendous experience. The people I've interacted with, the friends I've made along the way, the things I've learned. And I think my levels of motivation and inspiration have just gone up several notches in these last 4.5 years. So hopefully I'll get another chance.
And what's the road ahead for you, Mr. Jayant Chaudhary?
Well, people will decide. Like, elections are happening. We go with our own set of ideas, what we want to achieve. And it's up to the people of our country.
What would be your message that you would like to give across in terms of your personal message that you want to share with?
See, right now in public discourse, discussions in the media, other than Rajya Sabha TV and Lok Sabha TV, tend to be very critical and negative. What we're not understanding is that it's a small minority that actually gets a voice. We are the cream of India, people who are appearing in TV studios, who have a voice in TV channels. We are not representative of the country.
The mass as such.
So, but we have to understand that the world is watching us. The world is keen to get in on the Indian story. They have a certain respect for Indian value system, our history, our space in the global economy, our culture. So all this negativity isn't really helping things.
Okay.
So when the opposition says we are against FDI, and then tomorrow it says there is no FDI, so we are sending a very mixed message. So I would like to send out a message of positivity. Let's, I think, not lose faith in Indian democracy.
Okay, that's the optimism we like. Actually, thank you so much for joining this show. And all the very best for whatever you do. And that was Mr. Jayant Chaudhary. Sounded very optimistic in this show. Hope you liked this edition of The Quest. Thank you for watching. Namaskar. Bye bye.